Sometimes people ask, how did Lord Chaitanya put the prema into the mantra? And he did it the same way that the cook puts the sabji into the samosa. So you don't really know what's in the samosa. You can look at it, you have no idea what's inside until you bite into it and taste it. Similarly, with the Maha Mantra, we have no idea about the Krishna Prema until we bite into it and taste that Krishna Prema through the chanting of the Maha Mantra. And that is the teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nascheva, 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 Gatiranyata. That there is no other way for attaining Krishna Prema in this world, in this age, except for chanting the holy names. Now that's not his own idea. That idea comes from our Param Gurudev, the Guru or the supreme Guru of our Sampradaya, which is Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma explained this to Narada Muni, who is also one of our Param Gurudevs. And so Narada Muni took this teaching from Lord Brahma and spread it all over the world, and it came down to us through Lord Chaitanya, through the six Goswamis, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada always stressed this. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do two things. The first thing is I'm going to explain to you things that I learned from Prabhupada, that Prabhupada taught me. And the second thing I'm going to do is some rasas and leelas I had with Srila Prabhupada. So we'll open up with the first instruction, and that was, I was living in Los Angeles Temple in 1975. You were in Laguna Beach at that time, right?
Yeah.
You'd come back from South Africa.
So you want to go first and then I'll go second, not like go back and forth?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
That's kind of what we were.
Yeah.
So we'll change it up.
So Prabhupada came 3 times to Los Angeles in 75. He came in February 9th and 10th. Then he came in June. Then he went to the San Francisco Rath Yatra. We all accompanied him. Then he came back to LA in July. Anyway, so one class, Prabhupada was speaking, and he finished the talk, and he asked, are there any questions? And he looked around the room. Nobody raised their hand. So after a moment or two, he again said, does anybody have a question? Again, nobody raised their hand. Sometimes devotees were afraid to ask a question because maybe the question was stupid. They didn't want to be embarrassed. Anyway, no one said a word. So then Prabhupada decided that he would ask a question. So he said, is there any difficulty chanting Hare Krishna mantra? So we all said no. Then he said, is there any difficulty chanting and dancing in the kirtan during arati? And we all said no. Then he said, is there any difficulty after the kirtan honoring Mahaprasad? And we all said, no, Srila Prabhupada, no difficulty. So then he said, but that is Lord Chaitanya's 3-point program for going back home, back to Godhead. Chanting, dancing, and feasting on prasadam. So always remember that, the 3-point program for going back home, back to Godhead. And I've tried to make that the cornerstone of my devotional service. Chanting, dancing, and enjoying, honoring Mahaprasad. So that was that class. There was another class where Prabhupada spoke. And then in the middle of the talk, he stopped. And he just looked at everybody. And of course, when Prabhupada did that, everyone felt they were super quiet, and Prabhupada was very grave. And then he said, "You've all had millions of births." And he said, "And in all those births, you have seen everything. You have done everything. You have tasted everything. There's nothing new under the sun." So then he said, "So why not give this one life to Krishna?" That sounded very realistic to me. Why not just give this one life to Krishna? So then he said, "So finish up your business in the material world." And he went like this. "Finish up your business in the material world and go back home, back to Godhead in this life." So I thought, I meditated on this for many years, and I thought, this is a very good idea. So this is the cornerstone of my life, is to finish up my business in this material world and go back home, back to Godhead in this life. Then he said, the exact order, I'm not sure the exact order he said, but he said, "Don't be Krishna unconscious." Now that really caught my attention, because I'd never heard the phrase Krishna unconscious. So I was really perked up. He said, "Don't be Krishna unconscious. First become conscious. Then you can become Krishna conscious." So in other words, we have to be conscious that we're dealing with Krishna at every moment. We have to be aware that Krishna is seeing everything we do. We have to be conscious that all our associates are devotees of the Lord that are very dear to Krishna. So Prabhupada said, first become conscious. Then you can become Krishna conscious. And don't be Krishna unconscious. So I meditated on that for a long time. And my understanding of Krishna unconscious is that we're doing things, but not being fully aware. We're just doing it like an automatic pilot, without being fully aware. This is devotional service to the Supreme Lord. This is sacred. This is so wonderful. I'm so blessed to be able to do that. But we're Krishna unconscious. We're just doing the service, wanting to, waiting till it's over, and then that's it, gone. Not relishing every moment. So that went deep into my heart. Don't be Krishna unconscious. First become conscious. Then you can become Krishna conscious. Then he said, morose means Maya. And I thought, how poetic. Morose means Maya. He said that devotees are always jolly. That doesn't mean that we're not serious. The devotees are very serious about their spiritual life. But they're very jolly, they're very happy. And this, Prabhupada always quoted verse 9:2 from Bhagavad-Gita, which that shloka says, Raja Vidya Raja Goyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksha Bhagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartum Avyayam. Susukam Kartum, which means that everything you do in devotional service is joyfully performed. Sukam means joy. Kartum is what you do. So you're doing things joyful, but susukam, it's more joyful than joyful. It's supremely joyful. Susukam kartum avyayam. And that joy is ever increasing. There's no end. So that's real devotional service. And when we're in that mood, when we're fully conscious of Krishna, then we're experiencing this susukam kartum. Everything we do is joyfully performed. So he says morose means Maya. If we're not blissful, then we're not in our constitutional position. Our constitutional position is is Satchit Ananda, to be always blissful. So morose means Maya. So when we're not in our constitutional position and we're not blissful, susukam kartum abhyayam, joyfully experiencing devotional service, then what is that word in Sanskrit when you're not in your constitutional position? It's Maya. You're either in reality or you're in illusion. So morose means Maya. So that's another thing Prabhupada taught me. Then another thing he taught was the no-gap philosophy. In other words, we're constantly engaged in devotional service. There's no gap for Maya to come in. So Prabhupada said, devotee means we become fixed up. Fixed up means solid. Now, when I first heard that, I didn't know what Prabhupada meant. Fixed up means solid. But after contemplating it for some time, I came to the realization that it's a solid devotional service with no gaps for Maya to come in. Not like Swiss cheese, which is full of holes, but a solid block of devotional service. That's the no-gap philosophy. So there was one particular class that Prabhupada gave that at the end of the talk, he said something quite astounding. He said, so, if you follow all the instructions I have given you, and we all know the instructions, chanting the japa, engage in the kirtan, going to the arati, reading the books, going on sankirtan, like that, following the principles, not committing offenses. So he said, if you follow the instructions I have given you, I guarantee that at the end of this life, you'll go back home, back to Godhead. He gave a guarantee. So in the Brahmacharya ashram, we were all discussing this. Wow, Prabhupada gave a guarantee. Some people said, wow, piece of cake. Because we were thinking that for our whole life it would be as easy as it was the first few years. We didn't realize you have to be in the mode of goodness to continue. So, and then someone said, well, what if I'm not 100% pure? What if I'm only 90% pure? How can I go back to Godhead? How is Prabhupada giving a guarantee? So that was something that I contemplated for a long time. We didn't have answers in 75, but after contemplating, Krishna revealed answers to us, because Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto, I am seated in everyone's heart, mata smritir jnanam, and from me, within the heart, comes knowledge, comes remembrance, but also apohanam cha, also comes forgetfulness. So if we're Krishna conscious, we get the memories and the jnana, and if we're not, we get covered and we forget. So meditating on what Prabhupada said, the answers came to me. But before that answers came to me, that evening, after Prabhupada gave that morning talk, there was a Bhagavad-Gita class. And Hridayananda Maharaj gave the talk. So in his talk, he said that this morning, we all received a guarantee from Srila Prabhupada that if we follow his instructions, we'll go back home, back to Godhead in this life. But we have to be careful not to void the warranty. And he gave an example. When you get a new piece of electronic equipment or a car, it comes with a guarantee. They warrant that for a year or so, if anything goes wrong, they'll fix it free of charge. But if you try to fix it yourself and then bring it to them, you've voided the warranty. So he said we have to be very careful not to void the warranty. So, in other words, we have to really be fixed in devotional service. So, as I was saying earlier, over the years I contemplated, what if someone is not 100% pure at the end of their life, 90% or 80 or whatever? And Prabhupada gave a guarantee, so how is that going to be fulfilled? So then I got, we all know that Krishna fulfills all our desires. So my experience is that when I desire to understand something, after some time Krishna fulfills that desire and points me in the direction to understand. You also have that same experience, right? So he pointed me to this verse. Sarvadharman paritya jama mekang sharanam vaja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshisyami masuchaha. That if we surrender to Krishna and make him number one, mam means me, ekam number one, sharanam, surrender, vraja has two meanings. Vraja means like the devotees in Braj, surrender. And also vrajana in Sanskrit means touring, going on tirtha parikrama. So mam ekam sharanam vraja means wherever you go. So meditating on wherever you go, I realized that what wherever you go means every step you take. Because every step you take, you're going somewhere. I can be going from this room to the temple room. I'm going somewhere. So wherever I go, in other words, every step I take, Krishna has to be number one in my life. I have to be surrendered to that. So then he says, Masuchaha, don't have any doubt about it. Okay, so I make Krishna number one in my life, and everywhere I go, but still at the end of my life, I may not be 100% pure. I mean, I know my own heart and my own mind, So I know what purity means. Or let's put it this way, I know what impurity is. So I was meditating on it more and more, and then Krishna directed me to another shloka, 921. 921 is Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Parupashite, any person who worships me with no other thought for anyone else, no other thought except for me. Ananya Chinta. Chinta means thought. Ananya, no other thought except for Krishna. Ananya Chintayanto Mam, except for me. Ye Jana, any person, Parupashite, who worships me that way, Krishna says, Tesham, to such persons, Nitya abhiyuktanam, I'm eternally connected to them. Yogakshemam baham yaham, and I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. And then that was the answer. We may be lacking 10%, but Krishna will carry that. And he'll make it 100%. So Krishna is our best friend. So that was the realization of that understanding. What were some of the other memories from that 75? Okay, so whatever comes spontaneously. So in 75, that was when Prabhupada asked some of his devotees to come to India. So I was one of those that volunteered, and so I came to India in 75, and I was living here in this temple. And I had a private darshan with Srila Prabhupada in that room, along with my godbrother Satyanarayan, who's not here at the moment. But Satyanarayan and I were traveling all over India, and subsequently we traveled all over Southeast Asia, all the Southeast Asia countries, as part of the BBT Library Party, and we distributed full sets of Srila Prabhupada's books. So we knew that we were traveling, and we heard that Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, so we came immediately. And Jagadish at that time was Prabhupada's secretary. So we came, and we took bath, changed new cloth, fresh tilak, and we came to see Jagadish, and he said, we're with the BBT Library Party. We would like to see Srila Prabhupada. So he said, oh, well, Srila Prabhupada already has a visitor with him. so you can't really go in. So I said, well, can you tell Prabhupada that we're here? And we've just finished distributing full sets of his books in Kashmir, which is mostly Muslim, 80% Muslim. And when we were up there in the Himalayas, we passed an apiary where they had beehives, and we brought back a whole bottle of Himalayan honey for Prabhupada, which we showed Jagadish. So we said, just tell Srila Prabhupada that we're here and ask him when we can see him. So he said, okay. So he went in. In those days, we came through this door. So everything's changed. So we were waiting, and finally he came back out. We said, well, when will he see us? And he said, Prabhupada will see you now. Wow. So we came in here, we entered through there into Prabhupada's room, where he was sitting behind his desk. We offered our obeisances, and there was an Indian gentleman there with Gopal Krishna Das Adhikari at that time. And when Satyanarayan and I came in, Prabhupada turned to us, and he went like this with his arm, and he said to the two devotees, here are two very nice boys. And we offered our obeisances, and then they too got up and left. And then we came and sat down. And then Jagadish introduced us to Srila Prabhupada. And we said that we had just come back from distributing full sets of his books in Kashmir. So then Prabhupada said, oh, I went to Kashmir before I went to America. Now nobody knew that. This was 1976. I went to Kashmir before I went to America. And I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, I know. Because I met that gentleman. What had happened was I had come back from a college. I had just distributed a full set of books at this college. I came back riding in the rickshaw, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a sign, library. So as soon as we saw library, so I said, stop. I got down, walked back, and it said Oriental Library. So I went inside, and I started looking at the books, and they were all Shastras in Sanskrit, in Pali, in Kashmiri language, and it was like amazing. I thought, this is perfect. These books are perfect. Prabhupada's books for this library. So as I was looking, the librarian got up from behind his desk, and he came to see me. So we had our cards. So I handed him the card. Vayasaki Das Brahmachari, Bhakti-Vedanta Book Trust, and in the four corners it said London, Los Angeles, New York, and Bombay. So it was very impressive. So he said, oh, can I help you? I said, yes, we're representatives of the BBT. And I handed him a Bhagavatam, because we always carried a Bhagavatam with us. I said, you should have this in your library. So he looked at it. He looked at the photo of Srila Prabhupada, he glanced through it, he gave it back, said, oh, we already have this. Now, one thing Prabhupada taught us when we were on the library party, he said, salesmanship begins when they say no. So, we got a lot of no's, and so I became expert at countering the no's and getting a yes. So I said to him, well, that's impossible, because these books have just been printed. They just arrived in Bombay. The whole Bhagavatam has never been translated into English before with word-for-word purports, so I'm 100% sure you don't have these books, but you should have them. So he said, very politely, in a very humble mood, he said, well, let me check. So he went back somewhere, and I waited. And then he came back, and he was carrying Prabhupada's first 3 volumes that he published in Delhi, first canto. And he said, the author himself came here, and I purchased these from him. So I said, but look, it's only the first canto. Bhagavatam is 12 cantos. You should have the whole set for your library. And you should have the Gita, Krishna book, Nectar of Devotion, like that. So Chaitanya Charitamrita. So at the end, he took every book that Prabhupada had ever written. So when I came out of there, I was in ecstatic bliss. Wow. I just distributed books to the same person that Prabhupada distributed to. Oh my God. So I told this to Prabhupada in the darshan. So Prabhupada was very pleased. And then he said, do you remember when you first go to Kashmir, you go through the tunnel, and then you see the Kashmir Valley, and his eyes open up so wide as if he was seeing that scene again. And when we went through that tunnel and came out of it and saw the Kashmir Valley, we all went, wow. It was a wow experience. So when Prabhupada said like that, I thought, well, he also had that wow experience. So it was a very close, moment with Prabhupada. I felt very, a lot of union with Prabhupada. It was really sweet. And then he preached to us. Sometimes he would talk to Satyanarayan and look at him, and then he would talk to me and look at me. So that darshan lasted maybe between 10 and 15 minutes, something like that. And then Prabhupada wanted to wind it up. So his closing statement was, he looked directly at me. So he said, Saul, wherever you go, and whomsoever you meet, you simply share with them the knowledge you have received from me. And in this way, you become, by Lord Chaitanya's order, you become guru, and you can deliver the whole land. He quoted that shloka. So, although that's a shloka that's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's meant for everyone, because Prabhupada explicitly looked me right in the eye and told me that became my personal directive from the spiritual master. And he used the word share, which was very interesting. He said, share with them. So I've always, since that day, been in the mood of sharing Krishna consciousness rather than preaching Krishna consciousness. Because preaching means teaching. You're taking a higher position. But sharing means caring. I want to share with you what you know, and I'm also interested to hear what you can share with me. It makes people feel more at ease that we're both on the same level of understanding. Of course, we're not on the same level of understanding, but when Prabhupada taught that to me, share with others, it reminded me of how Prabhupada spread this movement. Because we saw that Prabhupada had only opened a few centers, 3, New York, Montreal, and San Francisco in 1967, 66 and 67. Then he had to go back to India. He became very ill. Then he returned to America in January 1968. From 68 to 77, he opened up 105 temples. Because I was, when Prabhupada left this planet, I can tell that story later, I got a BTG, and I counted the number of temples in the latest BTG, how many temples were there. Because an astrologer had prophesied when Prabhupada was born that he would go overseas and open up 108 temples. And I got the latest BTG, I counted each temple, and it was 108. It was amazing. So how did Prabhupada, in that short period from 68 to 77, spread this movement all over the whole world? So some of you may not think about that, or you may just take it for granted, but here's how Prabhupada did it, because I was there. I heard what he said. He would preach that, we should take to spiritual life. And he said, all you have to do is simply add Krishna to your life. He said, you don't have to give up anything. whatever you're doing, just continue what you're doing, but add Krishna to your life. Because no one will object to adding. If you ask them to subtract, then of course they dig their heels in. So he said, add Krishna to your life. Then he said, intelligent people don't accept things blindly. What do intelligent people do? He said, intelligent people make a test to see, is this true or is it not true? So he said, add Krishna to your life, make a test, chant this Hare Krishna mantra for a week or two and see what is the result. He said, there's no loss because I'm not charging you any money, so there's no loss. So that's what intelligent people do. So I was thinking, okay, I'm intelligent, I should do this. So I made a test. And at first, I will admit, I was a little intimidated. When the devotees told me, they took out the beads, we chant this mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And we do it 108 times all the way around. And we do that 16 times. Oh my God, is it possible? So I was a little intimidated. But then one day I tried it. Anyway, that's another story. As you see, I'm still here. So that's how Prabhupada spread the movement all over the world. So now I'm going to tell you a couple of leelas that I had with Prabhupada. So one, well, I already told you that one in Kashmir. Another one was February 9th in Los Angeles. Prabhupada had flown in from Honolulu to LA on the 9th. And of course, when he came, it was around 11 or so there was no morning program. But the devotees had arranged a wonderful evening program. And the Vaikuntha players, who were the best actors and actresses in our movement at that time in Los Angeles, had been preparing for a whole week to do a wonderful drama to perform for Srila Prabhupada. So that evening, everyone came for the Gaur Arti, and after the Gaur Arti, Prabhupada sat on his Vyasasana, and a little stage was set up, and the stage was only about this high. Now in LA Temple, the deities are here, Prabhupada's Vyasasana is over there, so over here was where the stage was. So when they set up the stage, all the devotees turned around, so Prabhupada was behind us. And then they introduced that the drama we're doing today is called The Pandavas Retire Timely. And this is a chapter from the first canto of Bhagavatam. And just a brief story, the Arjuna and Krishna and Yudhisthira are discussing how to avoid this Kurukshetra war. And they're discussing that so many people will die, so many wives will become widows, young sons will also die, young daughters won't have husbands. It's going to be a horrible calamity. Krishna, how can we avert this? So in the first scene, they're discussing with Krishna, and then they come up with the plan. So then scene 2 is in Duryodhana's palace. And Yudhisthira, Arjuna, and Krishna come to see Yudhisthira. And Yudhisthira speaks, and he explains the situation to Duryodhana, that this whole war is going to be a disaster. So many people are going to die, widows. If we can avert this war, that would be the best thing. So we have come up with a plan. Now we're Pandavas, we're 5 devotees, but we're Kshatriyas. So our proposition is this: if you just give us 5 small villages that we can govern, we can give you 95% of the kingdom, and we won't have to fight, and no one has to die. Now, how many people think that's a good idea? It's a good plan, yeah? But Duryodhana didn't think so. He thought it was a sign of weakness. Aha! They know they're going to lose and have nothing, and they're trying to salvage 5 villages. And so he said, I will not give you as much land as you can put under the head of a pin. And that was our god brother, sorry? No, that Lokamangala was Yudhisthira. No, I forget his name, from New Orleans. It'll come back to me. And we all turned around to see Prabhupada. In different times during that drama, we all turned around to see Prabhupada's face and to see his reactions. Anyway, to make a long story short, the war goes on and it comes to an end. It was an amazing drama, went on for an hour, and then we all turned around to face Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was beaming from ear to ear. Everyone was so happy. It was such a blissful drama. And because it was Los Angeles, Prabhupada decided he was going to give an Academy Award. So he said, so the Oscar goes to Yudhisthira. And everyone went, Haribo! And Yudhisthira was played by my godbrother Lokamangala, who was a brilliant actor. And to this day, most people don't know that Lokamangala is the only ISKCON devotee that ever got an Oscar from Prabhupada. So everyone was so happy, Haribo, and Prabhupada was beaming ear to ear. It was a joyous moment. But gradually, Prabhupada became more serious. And as he became more serious, the room became more quiet. And then Prabhupada became very grave. And the room was so silent, you could hear people breathing. And we were all waiting. Prabhupada, what's he going to do? What's he going to say? So after a few moments of silence, Prabhupada finally spoke up and he said, my Guru Maharaj ordered me to spread the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the English-speaking countries. But I am an old man. What can an old man do? Prabhupada was so humble. What can an old man do? But my Guru Maharaj, His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was so kind upon me that he sent all of you, American boys and girls, to help me. Prabhupada was so humble. And then he did something extraordinary. He said, so now I'm very happy to say that Lord Chaitanya's mission is in the right hands, and he went like that. Lord Chaitanya's mission is in the right hands. And everybody in the room, we all looked at each other, whose hands? No one could believe that our hands were the right hands. Lord Chaitanya's movement, we were all looking around. It was amazing. And then Prabhupada said, and this is a famous quote, you've probably all heard it before, but this is the time that he said it. He said, the grandfather is more kind to the children than the father. Therefore, my Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, will be more kind to you than you will to me. And I always remembered that. And when I was preaching in India, and whenever something good happened and I was able to do something, I always thought, wow, Bhaktisiddhanta must be giving me his blessings. And I always relate it to people. Whenever people say to me, oh, you were so fortunate, you had direct darshan of Prabhupada, you were there so many times, you heard him speak. And I say, I may be fortunate, but you are more fortunate. And you're getting more mercy from Prabhupada than me, because Prabhupada is now your grandfather. And I heard him say that the grandfather is more merciful to the children than the father. So you're all more merciful, more, what's the word? Fortunate than us. And then Prabhupada, he gave an example which further illuminated his humility. He said, if I have any credit, it's only one thing. I mean, we had all joined because Prabhupada had spread the movement all over the world. He said, if I have any credit, it's only one thing. That I have delivered to you the teachings of the Parampara as it is, without adding anything, without subtracting anything. If I have any credit, that's one thing. And then he gave an example. He said, just like a postman, although he didn't use the word postman, he used the word peon, and maybe that's what they call them in India. But he said, just like a peon delivers a letter from the government to the citizen, he delivers it as it is. He doesn't open it up, add something, subtract anything. He delivers it as it is. So he gave the example. Similarly, I'm delivering the message from Krishna to each and every one of you as it is, without adding anything, without subtracting anything. And Prabhupada said that if I have any credit, that is my one credit. So he was so humble. And based on his humility, over the years, of course, I'm always contemplating different things, trying to understand everything. So one of the things that I had contemplated was, of all Prabhupada's god brothers, he was not a temple president, he wasn't a GBC, he wasn't, during Bhaktisiddhanta's time, he wasn't a sannyasi. He was what we would call today a congregational member. He lived outside. He was a grihasta, business person. He would come to the temple. And I always was amazed that Krishna empowered not the sannyasis, not the leaders of the Gaudiya Math, but he empowered the congregational member to be the next acharya. Wow, that's amazing. How did that happen? And then Krishna revealed to me, due to his humility, because he was the most humble. And of all the qualities that Krishna glorifies and appreciates in other living entities, humility is number one. And why is that? Because Krishna himself is the most humble personality. He's the supreme controller, the controller of all the universes, all the planets, all the people, all the demigods. But he takes the most humble position eternally as a barefoot cowherd boy, herding cows and playing on a bamboo flute. So when he sees our humility, Krishna is so much attracted to that, and he's thinking, oh, you're just like me. So he saw Prabhupada that way, so he empowered Prabhupada. So my 45 minutes is up, so we'll stop here. And it's my great pleasure to introduce a very humble godbrother of mine, who is so humble and so sweet that at the tender age of still being a teenager, he went overseas to one of the most difficult countries where they had apartheid, and he was preaching in South Africa. So please let me welcome, and let's meet and greet Shri Das Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Where do I find the torch? Oh, yes. Om Jnana Timranya Sagana Gana Salakaya Chakzurin Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. As I was born in the darkness of ignorance, I asked the spiritual master to bring the torchlight of knowledge, because my eyes are closed shut and I'm trying to hold them, but the torchlight comes and some knowledge can be brought. So we'll try to explain something about how, as Vayasaki was talking, how we share what Prabhupada has given us. And it's amazing how this sharing can go far and wide. So it's like if you give a book to someone, or you tell someone about Krishna, or they come to the temple, they may tell someone else, and it's like electricity. If you stick your finger in the socket, and then Vayasaki grabs you, and I grab Vayasaki, I won't feel the electricity, right? I will. It even becomes more as it goes to the people. That's why if someone's actually getting a shock, you kick them off, because if you connect to them, you'll get the shock maybe even more than they do. So the first time I had any contact with something like this, I went in a few years ago, well, it was 1967, I went to the Newport Beach Rock Festival, and a bunch of bands played. And at the end, the Mystic Arts Group had a health food booth there, and they sold juice and all kinds of health foods. And at the end, they were singing, and so I asked one of the people, what is this song they're singing? He said there's a Swami that has a temple on Pico Boulevard. That was before even La Cienega, which was before, I didn't even go to Pico. Before Watsika was La Cienega, and before that was Pico. And they said, the Swami there named Prabhupada taught us a song. I said, well, how does it go? I said, well, come sing it. It goes like this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So there was about, I don't know, maybe 25 or more of the people that worked at the Mystic Arts, and they were singing this and playing on tambourines, and a couple thousand people gathered around, and there weren't even any devotees there. They'd heard this from Prabhupada. So we take a step to Krishna, he takes at least 10 to us. So we see how my spiritual journey begins, and each thing leads to the next. So that week, a friend of mine was shooting at some animals, and then he squished a dove with a rock. And I said, that's a cruel thing to do. He said, well, you eat meat, don't you? I said, yes, most of us do, don't we? He said, well, how many animals do they have to kill for you to eat meat? I said, probably a lot. He said, so does it make me any worse to kill one more bird than for you to eat all those animals? I said, you know what, you're right. He said, so it's okay for me to kill the bird? I said, no, I'll never eat meat again, and I didn't. Krishna made it so clear. They call these things God shots. And sometimes it's a gyata sukriti. We get some causes mercy. Something becomes, a moment of clarity becomes so strong. It's so obvious. Look at how this is. Here's a chance for you to make a choice. So there was a temple in Laguna Beach. And at this time in Laguna, Prabhupada had said, as other spiritual people had, that just like our body has chakras, the earth has them, and one of them's in Laguna Beach. 1/3 of the high school was vegetarian. And some of my friends from like the Mystic Arts world, they would smoke marijuana and try some hallucinogenic drugs. But they would say, someday, for real spiritual life, we have to give up illicit sex and intoxication. Now, of course, this was the time of free love, so... But they had this idea. It shows us that at least if we can make people willing to accept the idea of surrender, as Prabhupada says, if you're not against the principle of surrender, it will come about. So they planted this seed in my mind that someday I'll have to give these up. Of course, not while I'm in high school and there's cute girls here and opportunities to have beer and marijuana parties. Not then. So then my friends worked in the Mystic Arts World booth. There was a bookstore and a health food store and a clothing store and imports. And my friends worked in the bookstore, and they'd ask me to watch it for 5 minutes, which usually meant about 30. And I found this book called Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And in this book it said that bhakti just means we ask God for some way to serve him. We don't ask for something for ourselves. So I had a special meditation rock at the beach, and I'd go to this meditation rock and I would pray for some way to develop love of God. Finally, January 5th, 1970 came along, and I sit on my rock and I'm saying, God, please send me some way to develop love for you. And I got this real strong inspiration that if I really want some way to develop love of God, I have to give up illicit sex and intoxication. And I thought, I think it was St. Augustine, the Catholic saint, said, God, please make me chaste, but don't do it yet. So I thought, I'll know what I'll do. I'll wait till the summertime. I'll date a couple girls I've been trying to date, go to a few more parties, have more beers, and when June comes along, then I'll give it up. That sounds better, doesn't it? I don't need to do it now. Like if I bring you a kilo of gold, you'll say, well, you know what, October's not a good month for gold. Come back in March. Would you say that? No, no one would say that. I thought it's either worthwhile or it isn't. So I said, all right, God, I'll give up this illicit sex and intoxication, and you send me some way to develop love for you. And I was like 17. You take a step to Krishna. Of course, that was more than one step at that time, right? So I thought, how long will it take for me to find out what path I'm supposed to follow? And I opened my eyes, and as far away as Vayasaki is a devotee dressed in saffron walking right towards me. And I thought, Hare Krishna, this is what I'm supposed to do? And he came to me, and I said, what are you doing here at the beach? He says, well, we were up on the hill chanting, and all of a sudden I felt this uncontrollable compulsion to run down to the beach. He said, would you like to come and chant with us? I said, I think that's exactly what I'm supposed to do. So I chanted with them, and they told me about the Gita class. And so I went to the Gita class. Then they had it Monday and Wednesday. And then a couple weeks later, I went to the Sunday feast, and there was a friend of mine named Bob Morell, and he had been coming since 1969. And so then I brought my friend Glenn Collin, who became Bayahari later, and Bob Morell became Badri Narayan, who's now Badri Narayan Swami. So we used to go to the temple Saturday night, because very quickly after that, Prabhupada had come back to LA. So the three of us would stay at the temple on Saturday night, and we'd wake up, do chanting of rounds, and we'd help them prepare a feast, because they would have the feast at noon, and then at 2 o'clock, everybody would get whatever cars we had, fill them with people, and we would drive to Los Angeles, to La Cienega. And we would chant out there waiting, and the car would show up. And boy, back then many of the householders wore yellow, so you had saffron and yellow and white and all these colors out there. And the car would pull up, and Prabhupada would get out so gloriously, and he'd walk into the temple. And then Prabhupada would lead the chanting. Then he would give the class, the Sunday lecture, and then he would lead the arti chanting, and then we would have a second feast. And I said to the devotees, can I eat 2 feasts? They said, you can eat as much as you want, you're a growing boy. That may not be true now, but I still have a healthy appetite. So the second time we went to LA, it was initiation ceremony for Jayatirtha and Mohanananda. It might have been second initiation, but a bunch were being initiated. And at the end, all the devotees would line up along the walkway as Prabhupada was leaving. And Prabhupada would touch each one on the head. And I'm trying to get in the spot. They were lined on the walkway to the car, and there was no spot except the gutter. So I knelt down in the gutter, and Prabhupada came, the door open in front of me like this, and Prabhupada walked in. Then when the door shut, Prabhupada saw me there, and he looks, he says, oh, Hare Krishna. And he opened the door and came back out and touched me on the head. And I felt like nectar devotion says, like when you clap your hands, all the birds fly away, the sinful desire. Please, I felt liberated from so much gunk, karma, sins, contamination from the past. I was chasing the car as Prabhupada was driving away. Prabhupada wasn't driving it, he was riding, but as the car drove away with Prabhupada in it. And I remember the next day walking up to Laguna Beach High School, chanting on my beads and thinking, wow, now I've met the spiritual master who's really an enlightened soul. You can feel that when Prabhupada touched you or looked at you in any way, whether it's by reading his books or seeing him or hearing about him. Any of these ways are the same. You definitely feel that, like that electricity, whether you turn on the light or stick a fork in the socket or grab a hold of someone else who stuck a fork in the socket. You experience electricity under all of these circumstances. But with Prabhupada, we don't need to be as careful with electricity we do. So we would do this every week. And then Prabhupada also started to give classes on Monday. So we would go up on Monday. And then pretty soon afterwards, they purchased the temple on Watsika. That was the first one you went to? Vayasaki, Watsika? You joined at Watsika?
No, London.
London, oh.
Yeah, I joined in London.
You joined in London, oh.
Not a London issue.
Oh, but you didn't go to La Cienega, you went to Watsika. Later. Yes, because this was actually 1970 they purchased Watsika. It's funny because during the time it seemed like a long time of going to La Cienega, but it was only from like late January of 1970 till sometime in March when they purchased Watsika. But yet because it was so memorable, it seems like a long time. But by March of 1970, they purchased the building on Watsika Avenue. So at that time, they had the temple room was where the museum is now. And where the temple is now, they had pews in there like the churches have where they go down, and Prabhupada would lecture in there. And the amazing part was we had Badri Narayan and I were in one class in high school, humanities class, where we studied philosophy, and 11 out of the 14 people were vegetarians. So Badri Narayan and I would talk about Prabhupada in Los Angeles. So the teacher thought, let's take the whole class to see Prabhupada in Los Angeles, and then we will discuss Prabhupada and the Krishna conscious philosophy and the Krishna conscious practices as part of our class for the next week. So my mother thought, well, she'd go along too, and we had someone who was an old friend he was in between my age and my parents' age, and he would help me when I had troubles with my stepfather. And he came along too to see Prabhupada, and it was amazing because Prabhupada came and he bowed down, and he got up and Prabhupada grabbed his head and he's going, Prabhupada's holding my hand. He was so excited that Prabhupada had done that. So of course it was a most glorious day to have this contact with Prabhupada. And it was so wonderful to get to see Prabhupada there in Los Angeles. And I did this all through the end of January up till June. When June came, I wanted to move in the temple in Los Angeles, but my parents had already planned a trip to Europe. So I decided I would go with them to Europe and then come back to join in Los Angeles. So we flew to Europe, and I had to take nuts with me and things because there weren't very many vegetarian things, especially in France. We took the boat on the Seine River around Paris, and so I looked at the menu. It said chicken this, beef this, pork that, and one that said half a slice of melon. So I ordered the half a slice of melon, and it came with a piece of ham in it. I says, oh, well, just take it out. I said, no, I can't do it like that. So I was so depressed. So my parents went to a restaurant called La Coupole, and I didn't want to go in. It didn't seem like a vegetarian place. So my mother said, well, this is the Latin Quarter. This is probably near where the temple is. So I prayed to Prabhupada. I said, Prabhupada, please give me a way to serve you. Help me connect with the devotees. And then I heard ting, 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 ting. And I walked back, and in front of the restaurant my parents were in were the devotees chanting. There was Tamal Krishna and Hari Vilas and Umapati and Hanuman, and they were chanting outside this La Coupole restaurant, a very famous Parisian restaurant, La Coupole. So I engaged in chanting with them, and it was so ecstatic, and the next morning went to the Paris temple to see them. And then I had a dream, and in the dream Prabhupada came to my high school, and he said, you have had so many births. He said, look at some of your past births. And I saw all these past births. And then he said, your parents want you to go to Hawaii and to Holland. He says, you may go to Hawaii, but don't go to Holland. That will be disastrous. And the dream was so vivid that I realized to go back to America with my parents, I'd have to go through Holland. So Tamal Krishna had said that he was planning to come to Rome and try to open a temple there. So after Paris, we went to Rome. And I told my parents that Tamal Krishna was thinking of coming, he's coming to Rome. Why don't you leave me here in Rome? I'll spend time with him, and then I'll fly back to America. My parents said, well, why wait here alone? Why don't you go back to Paris and then come with him later, instead of just waiting in... Can we turn it off? Instead of just waiting for him here in Paris. So they said, but if you go to Paris, since we already have a ticket for you, if you're going to go there, you can't call in a week and say, hey, I want to come home now. You either come home with us, or if you're going to stay, you have to stay 2 months. You have to make a commitment of it. You don't just go for a week and then change your mind. So if you want to go, you have to stay 2 months, or if you don't want to do that, then come back with us. So I said, all right, I'll stay 2 months. So I went with them there on Harinama, and people would throw things at us and give us all kinds of trouble. The police would arrest us. I would stand at the back of the kirtan, and Tamal Krishna would be in the front, and then we'd be in a line. He'd be going, Hare Krishna, and then I'd yell, stop, and Krishna, Krishna, and like that. Devotees would go like this, in the crowd, and all of a sudden they would they would just, people would be looking around because the kirtan party just ceased to exist all of a sudden. They merged in the crowd and were gone because we were hiding from the police, and we'd already planned how to do it, to go backwards, sideways, forward, just, and people are looking around to see where we went, because we had Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, and it just gone, just like looking around like, how did they disappear? It was like an apparition that just ceased to exist all of a sudden. As the French say, ça n'existe pas, that doesn't exist. And France was a tough place. I remember near the temple was the charcuterie, the chez Noblette, where they sold the pig meat. And there's a girl talking to a big pig, and the pig is crying. And she says in French, pleure pas, grosse bête, parce que tu vas au chez Noblette, which means, don't cry, big animal. They're going to sell your meat at the house of Noblet. How would that make you feel? Don't worry. We're going to sell your meat at the finest meat house in Paris. Poor, of course, the animal's crying because they're going to kill it, and she's saying, don't cry. So Paris was good in the summer. It was okay in the fall. And then Tamal Krishna got a letter from Prabhupada that we didn't have internet back then. We didn't even have electricity at the temple in Paris. He got a letter from Prabhupada to go to India. So in the winter it got very cold. And the one French devotee is opening and shutting the windows, letting in the cold air. And I said, what are you doing? He said, set to an austerity. It's an austerity. I said, isn't it austere enough that we're living without lights and without heat and it's snowing outside? You need to let in more cold air. It's an austerity. It's set to an austerity. No, that's not what we do. We don't add more austerities. It was austere enough. So I said, Krishna, I'll make you a deal. If you get me out of this cold, I promise never ever to complain about heat ever. So this was like middle of March, maybe March 20th, by the time the letter came from Prabhupada. And it's still snowing in Paris. And the letter said, please send 3 brahmacharis to India. So we got a cheap ticket, Afghan Airways. We had to go London, Paris, Rome, Athens, Cairo, Egypt, Beirut, Lebanon, Tehran, Iran, Kabul, Afghanistan, and then to Delhi. It was a DC-3, right? This was 1971. It stopped everywhere. And of course we got on the plane, it was maybe 0 degrees or snowing. And when we got off, it was maybe 32 degrees, which isn't all that hot, but it is if when you got on the plane it was snowing. And my one devotee friend, I said, I got to get my long underwear off now, because we'd wear long, thick underwear. The ones, they sell them here at Loy Bazaar, the long jumpers that you wear underneath when it's cold. Long johns, yeah, long johns. We wear those underneath so that we wouldn't freeze. So of course he needed to get those off when it was over 30 degrees Celsius. So then we took the train from Delhi to Mumbai, 3 brahmacharis, and the train would go through Rajasthan and people would walk by and they'd turn their head because they'd seen Westerners and they'd seen brahmacharis, but they'd never seen 3 Western brahmacharis sitting in the train window. We'd always sit right there by the window just so people would trip on us and see us and come running to the window to see what was going on. They were so amazed. After all, this was 1971. Who was here in India in 71? Who was? Anyone else? You were? Yes? You were here in 71? You were in India in 71? So you remember how there weren't many Westerners here, right? Not many Western brahmacharis either, right? No, okay. So, see, I was in India before most of the Indians are here now were, wasn't I? So, we took the train to Mumbai, and the Cross Maidan festival was going on. So we went into Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada told the ones like Brahmananda and Shaimashundra that you must take care of these because these are young boys. Because I was 18, I looked about 12 or 13. So you see, like Brahmananda or Shaimashundra, they fixed my buttons, even in the last few years, because they remembered I was like a child. They were supposed to, Prabhupada told them, you need to take care of him because he's a child, right? He said he'd be children. I'd be like, So, and Prabhupada thought of that. Boy, you need to help take care of them. So, there was going to be initiation that Monday night, March 27th, 1971. So it was advertised, and that night 35,000 people came to see Prabhupada perform a wedding and initiation. And just when Prabhupada was about, before he was going to chant on my beads, he told Guru Das, go get the Western yogi who's out in the crowd. And Guru Das says, I don't see you. You couldn't see anyone there. I only see Indians. So Prabhupada says, back there. And he says, no, I don't see it. And Prabhupada says, back there. And just then the crowd cleared, and there was one yogi with a matted hair. And Prabhupada says, see that one there? And it was amazing because he was pointing before he was even got there. It was like pointing to where it was. So Prabhupada had the person come up and he said, sit right here. And then he chanted on my beads. And that person became Radhanath Swami later. So it reminds me that we don't have to become envious or embarrassed if people come along later and they're more advanced than us. We're trying to advance Krishna consciousness together. Some of us move slowly. Some people had it from past lives. Some people surrender more quickly. We just have to be happy when others make progress, not envious of it, right? Like if someone's doing the Vrindavan Parikrama, you don't trip them so they don't make it because you want to make it before they did. That we all work together. This is what Prabhupada wanted us to do. He said so many times, we will show our love for him by how much we fight with each other. Is that it? Is that it? No, it's by how much we cooperate with each other. Try to make things happen. Maybe someone else can do it better than me. Maybe they're not doing it quite as good as I do, but they're doing it and it's working well. Why should I be envious of it? I should be happy that it's going on. So, we had many programs with Prabhupada in Mumbai. We went to Mr. Shetty's house, and his wife this was the spice merchant, not the construction Shetty. And his wife had won worldwide vegetarian cooking contests. So Prabhupada's looking at the food, is offering the prasadam, and then when we're finished, he said, so we are the International Society for Eating Consciousness. He said, I must take them home or they will want to eat again. So we did programs. Some of the people Prabhupada distributed books to, like Sumati Morarji, who sent him to America, and Sadaji Whitlaw had the Punjabi halwa sweet shops. These people had all bought books from him and helped him in his early preaching. And we went back to do programs at their different houses. And Prabhupada kept such a busy schedule because in the morning he was translating, then he would go on a walk, and then he would come back and do other business. And he would, when I would go to bed at night, he would still be translating. When I'd wake up in the morning, he was translating again. So I got special mercy with that because in June, Prabhupada was going to Russia. So Mango showed up, and Tamal Krishna Swami says to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you can't go to Russia now. Mango season has begun. And Prabhupada said, preaching in the snows of Russia is sweeter than the sweetest mango. So then what happened for my initiation, and I forgot to tell you this part that was interesting, is that my beads had been sent from Paris to Mumbai, and Prabhupada had already chanted on them, and they were set to go back. So when we had the ceremony, Prabhupada chanted on them again. Now, unfortunately, I lost those beads, but I had the mercy that Prabhupada chanted on my beads twice. So what happened is, because Prabhupada was going to Russia, he chanted on the thread for myself and Jaganivas, not Jananivas in Mayapur, Jaganivas. And so then Prabhupada decided to do a ceremony. So he'd already chanted on my thread, not Jaganivas, because they said, well, let's initiate Jaganivas too. So Prabhupada is coming to put the thread on me, and I'm thinking, I'm getting double mercy again, because Prabhupada first chanted on the thread, and now he's going to put it on me too. And Prabhupada gets right up to me, and he stops and goes this way to go put it on Jaganivas. And Brahmananda says, no, Prabhupada, that's supposed to be Shuddhidas's friend. And I said, Brahmananda, I know what he's doing. I'll explain to you later. Because he was giving him the double mercy, because I'd already gotten it. So that was ecstatic to get. Prabhupada said, today we have made 2 Brahmins. And I remember once initiation, I'm fanning Prabhupada, and then I'm trying to chant mala, and the woman says, let me fan. And so she's fanning, and Prabhupada says, why did he stop fanning? She said, well, he is doing mala. She says, well, he was fanning so nicely, you stop chanting and keep fanning. So Prabhupada told me to stop chanting, but only for that instance. I don't take that for other. So he wanted me to keep fanning him. And we went to J. Om Prakash's house, the biggest movie producer in India. And all the big movie stars came to his house. And Prabhupada had been sick, but he showed up anyway. And Dr. Bali, whose wife was Vijayanti Mala, the famous Indian dancer, they used to come to the temple every day. And he gave a speech. And the people like Rajesh Khanna and the Kapoor brothers, I think there was 4 of them. And lots of actors and actresses have come from those Kapoor brothers, haven't they? I can't name them all, probably you can't. Maybe you all know their names as the Shashi and the this, that. There's so many, right? But not every Kapoor is an actor, right? And Devanand. So afterwards, J. Om Prakash said, you know, Indian movies are silly. They'd be ready to kill each other. They say, I'll kill you. No, I'll kill you first. I said, yes, but let's have a dance. So I thought, well, if he's the Acharya of Indian movies and he thinks they're silly, he ruined Indian movies for me. So if I don't know the Indian movies, that's why. It's his fault. Because he's the Acharya. If he made them and he thought they were silly, they must be, right? But I guess that's what they wanted. They cared more about the dance. But here, so that's what you do if a thief pulls a gun on you. You say, well, I'll kill you, but let's have a dance first. And then you do a dance? Is that what happens? Is it? In real life? No? Maybe they've seen so many movies they might go for it, right? Say, but first have a dance. And then you smack them with a stick. So, we went to many programs. There's a big Murti of Lord Shiva, and Prabhupada says, oh, Hare Krishna, Lord Shiva. So we went to so many of these. So then Prabhupada came after my Gayatri initiation, Prabhupada went to Russia and a few other places and came back. And then what I got to do was I got to be with Prabhupada alone lots of times because we couldn't have a loud artik because we were on the 7th floor. And Nandu Kumar was supposed to do the Mangal artik, but he would wake me up for it with a different excuse every day. And I said, you know what, it's easier if I just do it than wondering which 5 days you're going to ask me to and which 2 you're not going to. So I'll just do it instead of you waking me up with an excuse. It's easier just to do it. So when I'd be offering the flower, I'd turn around and Prabhupada would come out from his room. I'd hear him translating. I'd hand Prabhupada the flower, and it was just me and Prabhupada in the room. So then, when it came time for lunch, I would go into Prabhupada's room and I would take the different commentaries that Prabhupada would use to write the commentaries he was using. He had commentaries by Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Sridhar Swami and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So I'd put the books into the shelf, and then I would bring Prabhupada his prasadam. Then I would go serve prasadam to the other devotees. Then I would go back into Prabhupada's room, and I would get Prabhupada's plate, and I would transfer. They always made him a huge plate, and he didn't eat that much. So I would transfer that all onto another plate, and then I would wash Prabhupada's plate, and then I would eat what Prabhupada had left over. I did this easily for a month and a half or more. That was my prasadam. It isn't like I had to hoard, it just worked out that way. But at the time Prabhupada was finished, the other devotees were gone, and I'd clean the plate. It was the only natural thing was to eat what was there, wasn't it? You didn't expect me to save it till today, did you? So, then the war between India and Pakistan went on. And I remember doing the artik the one night, and Jayo, Jaya, the Pakistani planes had come close, and they were dropping the bombs in the ocean. They actually got scared and were going to turn around, but they dropped all their bombs very close to where we were. So while I'm doing the artik, our temple was right by the 7th, it was on the 7th floor, and out the window you could see the ocean. And I could see bombs dropping in the ocean, and I could see tracer bullets going up trying to hit the planes. And I thought, this is not a good sign, is it? So the next day I went into Prabhupada's room, because I used to go after artik. I would put the water on Prabhupada's head, and I would give Prabhupada the flower from the artik, and then I would leave the room. So this time Prabhupada stopped the devotees, and he says, just a minute. And I remember Tamal Krishna was there, Yadavara and Vayasaki, and he stopped them. He says, just a minute. He looks up at me and he says, so everything is all right? And just like that, that anxiety went away. It was like had a bucket of water thrown on you. You know, you still warm? No. It's like a bucket of cold water. I felt that go away just like that. Because the next day my mother called. And calling between, you didn't just pick up a phone and call, especially from India. It took 2 days to book a call to call America. In America, they had to keep trying. It didn't just get through. You didn't just dial a number. So she said, are you okay there? I read in a newspaper about Pakistan bombing Mumbai. I said, yes, I'm okay here with Prabhupada. So then what happened is that my mother was she was actually a trust attorney for 64 years. And so Prabhupada wanted to write a book trust. So they asked my mother to come and talk to Prabhupada. And so she wrote up some notes and sent it to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada wrote questions on them. And she said, well, I'll come up and bring my secretary. And so they came up and she worked out the deals for the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. And she was the attorney that wrote it and made it into a legal document. And she said that Prabhupada knew exactly what he wanted and understood exactly why she was making it into a trust instead of a corporation. There's a whole lot of advantages that we won't go into, but anyway, he understood why that was better. And she said he knew exactly what he wanted to do. what, there's certain things that were like which books the devotees would print. He was open on that, but half the money was supposed to go for books and half for temples like Mayapur that we're building now. Prabhupada these were his jobs, building Vrindavan and Mayapur and printing books. These were the things that would come from the money from that. So then my mother came to visit Mumbai in 71. And it's funny, we went on a life membership engagement, and they asked her to talk about Krishna consciousness in America, and she talked about the temple there in Paris and how the young boys and girls are joining in America. So she said, well, let's go visit the Taj Mahal in Vrindavan. So we came to here, and we stayed at a hotel in Agra, and we came to Vrindavan and went to Radha Damodar temple and to Govindaji's temple. And I have some pictures from that, not with a digital camera, of course, because it didn't exist. But we got to see all those temples. So then what happened was that Rishi Kumar Swami said, I told Prabhupada I want to go to South Africa and to open a temple. And I said, I'd like to take you along with me. And Prabhupada says, yes, to take Shuddhi Das with you there to open a temple. And I thought, well, why me? And I thought, well, why not me? So very soon then it was time for the Mayapur festival. So we were going to go to Mayapur and then go to South Africa. So we took the train. It was a third-class train, which they don't even have anymore. It was all wooden. It cost us 50 rupees to go from Mumbai to Calcutta and took 3 days. Just wooden planks, no seats, no cushion. Third-class train. They don't have that, do they? No. I think we complained about it so bad they discontinued it. No, we didn't complain. But we got to Mayapur, and very quickly after that, Prabhupada arrived. And he was going to lay the cornerstone immediately. So he arrived with his godbrother Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaj, and they stayed in the one building there, which was the thatched hut. And we put up a tent for us to stay in because that was the only building there at the time. So Prabhupada decided to invite all of his godbrothers to come for the cornerstone laying. And it was brilliant the way he performed this. His godbrother Anand, who was Bhaktisiddhanta's cook, did the cooking. And we were serving thousands of refugees. And they would come crowd us because they were starving after the Bangladesh war. Thousands of refugees would crowd us as we had big pots of khichdi that we're serving. They didn't sit down, oh, I'll wait my turn. They're crowding you because they're starving. So Prabhupada did the fire sacrifice, and then he went in and put dirt in for the cornerstone. Then his godbrothers went in. Then the sannyasis went in, and then I got to go in. So it was brilliant the way Prabhupada did this. He said to his godbrothers, he says, now that we're all together, this is why it bothers me when some people say that, oh yes, we heard that when Prabhupada laid the cornerstone, that he wanted one person to be a successor, and some of them mentioned one person, some of them someone different. And that wasn't what he said at all. I said, I was there and you weren't, so this is what Prabhupada actually said. He says, now that we're all together, we'll do like our spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, wanted. He says, we'll form a governing body commission, and from today forward, we'll work as one movement. He didn't say, think about this, or this might be a good idea. It's like saying, okay, what we're going to do after this is we're all going to get up and we're going to go do this. He stated it as a fact. He said, from this day forward, we will work as one movement, and we'll form a governing body commission, and we will all work together. And they all went jive, but they kind of dragged their feet to getting around to it. But Prabhupada at least tried. And he suggested the idea of everybody working together. And it was funny because some of them said, oh, well, you'll become more prominent. Which was strange because some of them thought, well, you're a junior member. If they really thought that, then they would have jumped on it, right? Like if a child comes along with a bunch of money and says, let's form a governing body and we'll each have an equal thing, you jump at it because you think, well, he's just a child. I'm going to get a good position, aren't I? So it means they obviously respected him because they said, oh, you'll become more prominent. So they're showing that they actually did respect his ability, but they were almost afraid of it. which shows us that we shouldn't do that. You know, we should continue with our governing body. It's obvious how the Gaudiya Math went. We don't have to explain why it was a bad idea just to pick one acharya. It was obvious. In ISKCON, we've had some people go sideways, but because we have a governing body, we work as one movement. And Prabhupada set this up this way. Doesn't mean individuals may not have problems, but the institution itself remains under Prabhupada's care. So now it was time to go to Africa, so I went to Prabhupada's room, and I said, Srila Prabhupada, I'm going to Africa now, and I hope this gives me an opportunity to increase my service to you. And Prabhupada put his hands behind his head, and he said, service to Lord Chaitanya, service to Lord Chaitanya, service to Lord Chaitanya. So we went to Nairobi first, and then we went to South Africa. And if you hear the Nectar Devotion tapes, on the first Nectar Devotion tape, 33 minutes into it, Prabhupada mentions how he got a letter that Rishi Kumar Swami, and he calls me Kudi, the Bengali pronunciation. Because my name in Sanskrit is pronounced Kshudi. In English they say Shudi, and in Bengali they say Kudi. So he said that we were in South Africa preaching. So then my parents came to visit South Africa, and they bought us a car, and they brought us the incense punks that we could make incense sticks out of. And we went to see the animals in the Kruger National Forest, and then they went home. And quick after that, all of a sudden I couldn't find Rishi Kumar anywhere. All of a sudden I found a note. And we're living thousands of kilometers from any devotee, and maybe 10 kilometers from any neighbors. And I see a note. I open it up. It says, Dear Shudi decided to split. So I turned the page over. Nothing there. I looked for another. I said, this is my explanation. So I went to check the money. He'd taken the money with him. So I thought, well, what shall I do? I can't cover for him, and I don't want to make him look any worse. So I'll just write to Prabhupada exactly what happened. That I found a note just saying, decided to split it. He took the money with him. And I said that I will go on preaching here, but I'm going to have to concentrate on selling books because he did leave me with a $12,000 debt. I said, but if I order $3,000 more worth of Gitas, I can tell people they can't, because they all wanted the Bhagavad-Gita. Tell them you can't have the Gita unless you buy the whole set of books. There was like the Krishna books, and there was Ishopan and several other books. So I'll tell them that. I thought, that doesn't sound good. And I said I would do more selling of books because my first mission was to try to pay off the debt and keep my contacts here before trying to do too many programs. But I would still do programs. So very quickly a letter came back, and I wondered, am I in trouble? So I opened the letter, and it said, I'm very much pleased. So I thought, oh, that has to be good. And it says, I'm very much pleased at the responsibility you've taken to spread Krishna consciousness in South Africa at such a young age. He says, somehow or other you are left alone, just like our Narada Muni. And my destiny is to be left alone a lot. I was talking with Haridas Thakurdas about this yesterday. Quite often I travel alone. I don't have any wives, girlfriends, brothers, sisters, parents. And my uncle was antagonistic, so I don't have any. I have 2 children, 2 grandchildren, and a great-grandchildren, and they don't travel with me. So I spend a lot of time alone. But as Prabhupada said, somehow or other you are left alone by Krishna's arrangement. Just like Narada Muni, and he became one of our greatest devotees. So then he showed, just because I'm a child that couldn't do it, obviously, he said, I am praying to Krishna that you will have the strength and enthusiasm to carry out this mission. And that's the idea of it. I was just a child. I wasn't capable of anything. But because Prabhupada prayed to Krishna that I would have the strength and